Dave Nonis has been involved in hockey for his whole life. His successful junior career led him south of the border to play college hockey at the University of Maine. It was there he would meet his future mentor, Brian Burke, who represented Nonis' college roommate. It would prove to be a partnership that would last a lifetime. The two would work together first in Vancouver and then at the NHL offices. In 1994, Nonis played an essential part in negotiating the collective bargaining agreement. After returning home to work for the Canucks in 1998, Nonis was part of the management team that helped turn the franchise around. In 2004, at the age of 37, Nonis was named GM of the team. He was the youngest GM in franchise history. His time with the Canucks is perhaps best remembered for the trade that brought Roberto Luongo to Vancouver. He also played a big part in the drafting of the Sedin twins, Daniel and Henrik, and Ryan Kesler. Although he parted ways with the team in 2008, his impact was felt much after that.
When you consider the 2011 Stanley Cup finalist Vancouver Canucks, you rewind, Dave Nonis' fingerprints are all over that team. Dave Nonis always had his focus on doing what was best for the Vancouver Canucks. And I would dare say that if he didn't take some of the positions that he did, not trading some of those young players, they would not have got to the Stanley Cup final and had the success in 2011 and through those years.
Dave's ability to connect with players and understand team building, and I think the players, they knew that Dave cared about them. And certainly it's always a business, but at the end of the day, he cared about the players, and they knew that.
Unlike NHL players, NHL management do all their big plays behind closed doors. From contract negotiations to making trades and drafting, it's noticing the details that make a difference.
I love Dave. I still do to this day. He's a great guy, great friend, and people who work with him realize how hardworking he is, how thorough he is, how good a hockey person he is. And Dave is going to be a hockey lifer. He's a wonderful guy to boot.
I think it's very fitting that Davey's going in the builders category because he is a builder. And I think of a builder, I think of someone who's creative, outside the norm. These are not normal houses that Dave Nonis is building. And in order to work with them, he's a demanding guy, he's a creative guy, he thinks totally outside the box. And putting together a hockey team is no different than putting together a gorgeous custom-built home. It's a pleasure to work with him. I learned a lot from him, and he will keep on going.
Hi Dave, I want to congratulate you on being inducted into the BC Hockey Hall of Fame. I don't know that it's been a help or it's been a hindrance, the fact that we're loosely related. I'm going to guess it's the latter, but wow, what a path that you've endured over your time in this great sport. Dating back to 1982-83 when you were a star with the Burnaby Blue Hawks. And despite the fact that you managed in two very tough media markets, Vancouver and Toronto, in my opinion, you remain one of the most respected executives in the sport, period. So again, congratulations. This honor is richly deserved.
Dave is indeed a hockey lifer. His nearly 30 years in the game is proof of that. He has found success everywhere he goes, and he now finds himself as the newest member of the British Columbia Hockey Hall of Fame.
Dave Nonis, come on up. Would Brian Burke please come forward to make the presentation?
Well, thank you for the standing ovation. I wanted to say a couple words before the evening's getting on here, and I don't want to speak long, but I do want to say a few words. I don't know why I want to say nice words about a guy who knifed me in the back and took my job twice. But obviously you see from the slides there that we both had, I had red hair and Davey had black hair when we first started working together. 25 plus years together at the NHL, Vancouver Canucks, Anaheim Ducks, Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is a really fitting honor for Dave Nonis to be inducted tonight into the BC Hockey Hall of Fame. He's had a great career. He was a great college player. He's had a great career as an administrator, as a GM, great league official, and it's a great class going in tonight. It really is. There's a link between all these guys and me. I had Thomas Gradine, they showed the Sedin twins, the guy that really pushed hardest for the Sedin twins. You're going to hear from in a few minutes, Thomas Gradine. Brad Lazarewicz, who I don't have to yell at you tonight, Brad, this is the first. Ron Toigo, who's done so much for hockey, and who am I missing? John Shannon, who has had such a great career in broadcasting, but he's an on-air analyst, a guy that never played the game at any meaningful level, and yet I listen to every single word he says. I think his analysis is perfect. So Dave Nonis, star college defenseman, great career in the National Hockey League as an administrator. Congratulations.
I love when Brian says I knifed him twice and took his job. I said, why shouldn't I? I was doing all the work. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the other inductees this evening. John, Brad, Tony, Ron, Thomas, and of course, the 97 Powell River Eagles. Yeah. And again, my son played there for 2 years. I saw your bust. That must have been a tough time. It's really an honor to be going in with all you tonight. And I do know some of the Powell River boys. I've met them over the last couple of years, but the rest of you, we are tied different ways, and it really is an honor to be going with you tonight. I'd also like to thank the selection committee. When Berkey first called me, I was at a loss for words, which is rarely the case when I'm on the phone with him. Then I looked at some of the names that have gone in before me. Fred Page, Scott Carter, Brian, Bob Nicholson, Kenny Holland, Father Bauer, just to name a few, some very impressive names and impressive people. At that point, it's when it kind of sunk in what a special honor it was and how happy this had made myself and my family. Growing up in Vancouver in the 70s, the Vancouver Canucks were the only team that mattered. They were rarely on TV. John hadn't worked his magic yet, but when they were, which is 4 or 5 times a year, we rarely missed those games. When the team went to the finals in '82, I was a teenager. We stayed up all night to try to get tickets. I got a chance to watch them play in the finals. So when Jake Thompson, who helped put these videos together, asked if my proudest moment in my career was being named GM or my first win as a general manager, I said no. My proudest moment was walking into the Canucks office on Renfrew Street the last week of August in 1990 and starting a job with the Vancouver Canucks. It was a job with no real description or set responsibilities, but that didn't matter. All that mattered is I had a job in the NHL and I had a job working for Vancouver. And it was a great moment. This August, I'm fortunate to be starting my 28th year in the NHL. And it's amazing how quickly it goes. And to me, it all goes back to Renfrew Street and starting there. And it was a very special time for all of us. I quickly learned that this game is about opportunity and people. And while I always tried to make the most out of my opportunities presented to me, I know that without a great deal of help from a great number of people, I would not be standing in front of you today. So while I apologize that I can't recognize everyone, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention some people who have had a great deal to do with any successes that I have had. First, the staffs I've worked with, who helped us assemble some very good hockey teams. Ron Delorme, Stan Smeal, Steve Tambolini, Mark Crawford, Jack McElhargy, Elaine Vigneault, Pat O'Neill, Bob Murray, Dave Poulin. These are people that did so much work, and I don't know who it was that mentioned the teams in Vancouver that went on to win President's Cups and came very close to winning the Stanley Cup. I know Brian and myself and Steve, and all the guys I mentioned, like to take credit. I think we had something very special to do with that, but a lot of the people that worked with us, not under us, did the bulk of the lifting, so thank you. Bob Nicholson. In 1988, I was cut from the Canadian national team. And at that point, I thought that any chance of representing my country was gone. However, 24 years later, Bob gave me another chance. He allowed me to be a part of the Team Canada management team for the 2012 and 13 entries to the World Championship. And I will always be grateful for that honor, a chance to represent Canada and to put that jersey close to my chest again. So Bob, thank you very much. Pat Quinn. A lot of people have talked about Pat tonight, but unfortunately there's a lot of people, and have been around our game, that don't respect the game and respect the people in it the way they should. And then there's Pat. So one of my first meetings with Pat, he told me to do my job to the best of my ability, but to always remember that the people in the stands, and more importantly, those who were not fortunate enough to get to the games, were much more important than any of us. He treated his staff and players with respect, and he was a true mentor for all of us. And I know that everyone that worked for Pat took something from him. You didn't always know what it was, but as your career moved along, for those who were fortunate enough to keep working in the game, he made a lasting impression. And I think that everyone that worked for or with Pat will always remember that, and as long as I'm fortunate enough to be working in the game, he'll be one of the guiding lights. Brian, my relationship with Brian goes back to the days when he was a sleazeball agent. He represented my roommates, and he was making a name for himself and doing a very good job of it. Most of the opportunities I've had in this game, Brian's had a hand in, and I owe him an unpayable debt. Brian also taught me lessons in this game quickly and harshly. After I graduated from Maine, Brian offered me a tryout with the Canucks. While I was thrilled to be invited, I had just finished a successful season at Maine and captained the team to the Final Four. So I told Brian that I'd love to come, but that I needed a contract or I was going to go play in Europe. Without missing a beat, he said, "Enjoy the flight." I didn't know what to say. That was it. So I played in Europe, and fortunately, Brian didn't hold any grudges, and later on, we got back together again. My family, my brothers Don and Mark, you learn a lot from chasing your older brothers around. And I know you didn't have to bring me along and let me be part of it. I appreciated every minute of it, and it made me love the game even more. My sister, Terry, thanks for putting up with three of us. Tough for the oldest person in the family to have three brothers that all we talked about and did was hockey. So thank you. Mom and Dad, thank you for putting aside your dreams and sacrificing so much so that your kids could follow theirs. And finally, to my wife Susan and son Nicholas, this is it's the greatest game in the world, and it can be so rewarding for all of us that are fortunate enough to be in it. But it's also easy to forget how hard it can be on your family. So for all the moves and job changes and scrutiny and late night phone calls and swearing so you're waking up the children, thank you both very much for helping me along the way. So, in closing, again, congratulations to everyone. This is, until I get to hoist the Stanley Cup, this is probably the most special night in hockey that I've had. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the evening.